We are back. Great to have you here with us. Thanks again to Casey Hudson for giving us all the college football updates back in the SportsGrid studios. Make sure you stay locked in here on SportsGrid, really, I should say, because Casey will be up after this show giving you a whole hell of a lot more insights across the world of college football and tracking the results as they come in. There are still some games that are ballpark hour and a half away from kickoff. We got football all night long, but here's what else is good. We got football practically all day on Sunday. There's no international game, so it's not truly all day. Starts with the regular slate, but we got a lot coming our way. Back here with Brady Kannon, I'm Adam Kaufman. We welcome in our third and final guest of the program. Very excited to have him here. First time on this show. That is Drew Dinsick, who is, of course, from NBA Sports Bet, analyst there. And, not everyone has a podcast. Let's be honest. Everyone has a podcast. Not everyone has two. You can catch Drew on the Bet the Edge podcast as well as the Deep Dive podcast. Drew, how are you, man?
I'm tremendous. It's kind of a drizzly day here in Southern California. We're getting ready for UCLA, USC. I'm a UCLA guy, so obviously not expecting fireworks necessarily, but hoping we can eke something out here as they've putting together some momentum lately. But I'm mostly fired up for NFL Sunday. The games on the card tomorrow, maybe like at a distant glance, don't feel that exciting, but the energy that kind of carries from Thursday Night Football into this weekend, I think, is real. We're getting into real deal football weather. These games mean a lot. It feels like there are real elimination games on the card here, and I'm pretty excited about some of the opportunities from a betting standpoint, as the market, I think, is still a little bit cool on a couple of hot sides.
Beautiful. Let's get into it here. And, it feels like football weather, obviously, when you get a blizzard-looking environment on your televisions in Cleveland to kick off the week with Thursday Night Football. And, first game of the week already, dogs barking. We had ourselves not only a cover, an outright win. It was a narrow spread, but nevertheless, upset of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Nice to see. I'm just going to start with a game that I already brought up to Kenny White earlier. I didn't get the answer I was looking for, so I'm going to bring it right back to you. A game that I love here, game that I absolutely love, is the Buccaneers favored at the Meadowlands against the Giants with Tommy Cutlets getting the start again. Not Drew Lock, who would have been a better option, although both options stink in the wake of releasing Daniel Jones. Mike Evans is back, and I think we're sleeping on that a little bit. I think we're completely ignoring the Malik Neighbors groin issue and the watered down defense that Tampa Bay is going to be going up against. Secondary has plenty of issues. The Giants are horrid against the run. Even Bucky Irving, or the corpse of him, is in a solid spot to go off. I don't understand how we don't take Tampa -5.5 in this game. But Kenny said his metrics had this game closer to a 1-point spread. How do you see it?
Yeah, me and Kenny are looking at the same numbers. This is there's
we're out of time, but thanks for hopping on.
I gotta tell you though, I wouldn't bet the Giants with my worst enemy's money. This is a tricky one because pretty clearly the market is put a surcharge on Tampa. But for good reason. When you do something like what New York has done, where you're pulling the rug on the starting quarterback and you're putting a guy out there who I think all of us feel like is at best the third best option, that sends a message. And that can be received quite poorly across the veterans who are like, well, okay, so if we're not trying to win, maybe I need to make some business decisions in this game. And you may not get, an especially impressive, play hard type of performance. If you think back to Thursday Night Football, the Browns are out of it. They're playing for nothing. Right. But there was pretty clearly and obviously to anyone who was watching an intensity that they brought to that game because of the rivalry and because they have not kind of given up on the idea that they're still a good defense and they still have some all universe players like Myles Garrett. And those players did not feel like they were being very well respected. And they came and they played with the chip on their shoulder. And at this time of year, if you're backing a losing team, that's what you want. You know what's a great way to put some cold water on a team that is losing is to pull the starting quarterback and put in a guy in Tommy DeVito who, okay, fine. He had some successful moments last year when you had no other options. Okay, fine. He was a little bit of an internet sensation just because, oh my, can anyone believe this guy's winning? No. But he's not good enough necessarily to compete in this game. And I think the question really for betting either side here comes down to, how do the rest of the players in that locker room view this decision? Because Dable came out this week and he said, no, I think this gives us the best chance to win. That's nonsense. Like, I don't think that anyone realistically believes the Giants are trying to win. The Giants were kicking the tires on every quarterback in the draft last year, did not get an opportunity to take a guy or get a trade opportunity up to get a guy that they wanted, which means they're going to draft a quarterback this year. And the more games they lose, the better position they're going to be to draft that guy. And so I think realistically, the message across the, to the vets is pretty clear. And, and your point about Neighbors is fair. Like, he matters a ton, not just for the offense for the Giants in general, but for this game in particular, because the Buccaneers have had the least successful pass defense in the NFL this year. They are giving up the league worst success rate to drop back passers. And if you had a healthy Neighbors and an engaged offense, then yeah, there could be some stress here for this Buccaneers defense. But I don't think realistically that's the world we're living in. And I think the Buccaneers likely come away with the victory. And the question is it more than 6 points? Obviously, as that's where the number, that's where the market says fair is right now. And like, I can't put together a player level, handicap here that says 6 is a bet. So I have to walk away from this one. But I get your points. And this has a lot of whiffs of, Lions Jags from last week. Like, I definitely lost sleep on Sunday night, not backing the Lions in that spot, because you're like, the Jags have quit. Their coach is getting fired. They're going into a bye. This is 3-2-1 Cancun. You see this in the NBA all the time. And it was like, it was staring at you. Just lay it. It's a huge number. It's the NFL. Just lay it. Like, you can't actually. And it would have been, and that would have been the easiest.
What did I say to you, Brady, last week when we were talking about that game?
Yep, your favorite play was the Lions. Bet the Jags, yes, it was.
I wouldn't bet the Jags with your money, is what I said to
you. No, and Drew is absolutely echoing my thoughts here. I made the number, that the Giants should be a play here. The unrest in the locker room, the distractions. Drew Lock is upset that he's not starting. There's so much that is bad that is going on in New York that I don't have the guts to play him. And then I was also kicking myself. I mean, the Lions, this machine that they are, although I'll tell you what, we might have finally found a spot where they're going to slip up for just a second. And that might be this week, Drew. They come off of that huge performance. It was the week before that they slipped a little bit on the road, didn't cover, won the game. But, Jared Goff throws the 5 interceptions. They do come out with a win over the Texans. Before that, it was the Packers. And then you have the Colts here coming up. And then after that, they play the Bills. They play, I think, the Packers again. This is kind of a little hole in the schedule where you're laying a touchdown on the road. I think Indy can possibly hang tight.
Dude, we are, again, looking at the same cheat sheet here, man, because I love the Colts this week. Love. I bet into 7.5 when it was closer to even juice. It's getting expensive. I'm fine with taking +7 at this point. I think that's a better bet than laying the juice on 7.5. And I completely agree. I think the offense for the Colts can hang. I think the absence of Anzalone is being completely ignored by the market. That guy matters a ton. This defense is going to be under stress, and the Colts could very well just get the outright win. This is what the old school handicappers would call a sandwich spot, because every rest of the game on the rest of the schedule matters more for the Lions.
We have a lot more coming up with Drew Dinsick. Also, Notre Dame scored another touchdown, which means an angel got its wings. Much more in the NFL on the
Tale of the tape for Battle of the Giants. Francis Ngannou, 38 years of age. Reina Ferreira is 34. Francis standing 6 feet 4 inches tall. That's usually the bigger man, but tonight he'll face a man who is 6'8". May not weigh in heavier, has the longer reach on arms and legs.
We're back here with Drew Dinsick, who again NBA Sports or NBC Sports Bet. He is, he does handle NBA, but we're talking NFL with Drew right now. Some interesting games on the Sunday slate in front of us. Let's go to one that is, maybe it's more compelling on paper than it'll be in reality. I'll let you tell me. Niners at the Packers. Now, this game was definitely more interesting when you would have thought the Niners were going to more or less have their full complement of players, Drew, outside of obviously Brandon Ayuk, who's done for the year. But George Kittle missed a game. He's going to be back. You have CMC. Maybe Deebo Samuel decides to actually get involved this week. We'll see. But Brock Purdy is not going to play. I would be hard-pressed to, I would challenge people out there to name the Niners' backup quarterback options. Honestly, I would walk down the street and I will hand out $50 bills to anybody that can name either of the backup QB options for San Francisco. I dare you. This game is at Lambeau with a Packers team. Both these teams are kind of desperate. San Francisco's playoff future is very much in the balance right now, but there are people that have Green Bay as their stone cold locks of the week for this game. How do you view it?
Well, over the balance of an NFL season, if you're aggressively handicapping and betting, you make some bad bets. And I made the one this week, betting into the Niners earlier in the week, as I thought this was going to kind of close in the money line range, because I just didn't have a sense that the injury to Purdy was anywhere close to as significant as it was when he took himself out of practice on Thursday. That was a bad sign. Talking to my friend Andy on the deep dive at the halftime show for Thursday Night Football, he was like, "Oh, did you see Purdy took himself out of practice? And it sounds like Trent Williams might not go." And I was like, "Oh, I better look up, better check out what my Brandon Allen number is." And he's like, "Oh yeah, is he the backup tackle for Trent Williams?" I was like, "No, he's the backup quarterback for Brock Purdy." And it's like, yes, to your point, who the heck knows Brandon Allen? How do you make a fair for Brandon Allen? He has 9 career starts. He's 2-7. His 10-6 touchdown interception ratio for his career. There's just not a lot of data on this guy. And I think this is going to prove out one way or another if Shanahan's system is quarterback resilient. There was a lot of surprise when Purdy took the reins as Mr. Irrelevant his rookie year and won every game down the stretch. And I think people kind of assume that with the weapons that exist and with Shanahan's kind of scheme wrinkles, that they're going to be able to put a hurting on the Packers here. And I hope that happens, because I need to salvage, what looks like an absolute loser of a pick here. But ultimately, the Packers defense to me is beatable. It's gettable. And the way I kind of was expecting this to go was to be a relatively run heavy approach. Like when Purdy's shoulder was hurt, one of the reasons I bet into Niners, because I was like, he's not going to have to throw it that much anyway. They're just going to be able to run these guys off the field. There is very clear and obvious ways to take advantage of this Packers team. We've seen Shanahan do it so many times. And I thought that in general, this was kind of going to be the, oh yeah, Christian McCaffrey plays for the Niners type of game. But now with Brandon Allen there, I think the emphasis for the run defense, just in general, keying on McCaffrey is going to be pretty obvious and the clear focus for the Packers here. And so it's going to come down to Brandon Allen getting it done, to the Deebo Samuels, to the Juwan Jennings, to maybe to Kittle if he's healthy. And I think this is a rough spot here. And sometimes you take risks because, with injuries, because you're, San Francisco's back's against the wall. They can't afford to lose this game. They have tiebreakers. They've lost tiebreakers all over the place in the NFC so far this season. And another loss here effectively makes them, by my numbers, 18% chance to make the playoffs. And that would have been unthinkable to start the season. But that's where they sit. And I would have thought play, no injury matters, play through it. That was sort of the paradigm I thought for this game. And now it looks like white flag season. So I'm nervous here. And I think that in general, the Niners defense does match up fine against what the Packers are trying to do. Packers are getting things done mostly on the ground, which is a surprise to a lot of folks who thought Jordan Love was going to have this breakout season MVP type of performance level. And we have not seen that. But I would say that just in general, this is going to have to be a game where Christian McCaffrey really elevates the team. And if he's the offensive player of the year from last year, if that guy shows up, then maybe they can do it. But the Niners are going to need a little bit of luck to win this game and save their season. and that's a pretty sad state for them to be in, considering the fact that this time last year, they were 6-point favorites over the Ravens, at home on Christmas. Like this team was in, being rated in rare air last year, and it was correct. And now they have fallen in towards barely better than average on neutral, which is pretty sad.
Drew, this is like a swing state game here as far as football contests are concerned, because when the contest lines came out, it was Green Bay -2. Of course, the live market now 5.5 or 6. So, do you take the easy bingo square, or do you go completely contrarian? It's a tough one when you're playing football contests, this game for sure. I think another one that's interesting, we have so many road favorites this week. The Arizona Cardinals, I made them a 1-point favorite. When I crunch all the stats, I come out to them as better than a 4-point favorite up in Seattle. They went into their bye on a roll. I hate to bet on a team that goes into a bye on a roll because they don't need that momentum halted. Is Arizona deserving of being a road favorite? I wonder about that. But Seattle's so bad. I ended up staying away from this one. What is your thought up in the Pacific Northwest?
I get your sentiment. I like your sentiment about the cold water of the bye on the Cardinals. To make matters more difficult, they're playing outdoors in very difficult weather conditions for an indoor desert team. But even more than that, I think that a lot of the sentiment about the Seahawks, which is reasonable and fair, is kind of conditional on the fact that the middle of their season, after their 3-game hot start, was really all about trying to figure out how to utilize the players they had with the injuries they were suffering through. And I think Mike Macdonald is like he's a workaholic, and he has kind of tirelessly put himself towards solving offenses and finding ways to utilize the players available to him. And he's starting to get a healthy defense, which really, I think, elevated their performance last week against the Niners. And I think will elevate their performance this week against the Cardinals. I think the Seattle defense, you may come out of this game feeling like, wow, they finally figured some things out. They're getting hot at the right time. And the Seattle offense, I think, can absolutely put a hurting on the Cardinals defense, who I just do not believe in. So give me Seattle here at the cheap price at home.
We are hanging out with Drew Dinsick, who either has the greatest microphone I've ever heard or a voice filter that I need. More on the way.
Your main event, tail of the tape for Battle of the Giants. Francis Ngannou, 38 years of age. Reina Fajeda is 34. Francis standing 6 feet 4 inches tall. That's usually the bigger man, but tonight he'll face a man who is 6 foot 8. Reina weighed in heavier, has the longer reach on arms and legs.
All right, all of our guests, they've come and gone, and you, the listener, the viewer, and certainly us here, Brady and I, are the beneficiaries. We have been rewarded with all the great information provided by most recently Drew Dinsick, before him, Kenny White, Tommy Lorenzo. Did you learn a thing or two here, Brady?
Yeah, absolutely. I was just looking at my Twitter account. Somebody chimed in. Ralph Ruber, at Ralph Ruber on Twitter, replied, Kenny White, and then in all caps, best in the business. A pretty sharp guy, followed by another pretty sharp guy in Drew Dinsick. And that spin on the Kansas City game was very creative, and he made a ton of sense with it. And you could see the scenario playing out. I mean, after all, it's Patrick Mahomes. Is there anything that he does that, surprises you anymore? So, yeah, no, a great last hour of content for sure. And hopefully you've got some bets to go make here in the near future for Sunday and beyond.
All right, Brady, the data's out for Circa. Let's start with Circa Survivor here. Current live entries, 95. The implied value per entry is north of $150,000. Again, this contest, as you well know, $1,000 to enter. So people are already sitting on a fair amount of money if they want to sell off a portion of their ticket, look for an investor to come in, help them out, a co-owner, whatever it may be. I mean, this is the time, as you've talked about in recent weeks, that people start to shop this stuff around, figuring, all right, I might not come away with $14 million, but the longer I hang on, I'm going to get a hell of a lot more on my investment than that $1,000. That's for sure. The two, and there were a bunch of teams, actually. I asked, do you think anyone rolled with the Steelers here this week and potentially got knocked out? 3 people did. 3 people went with the Steelers and were down of the 95. Shockingly, I like this. Honestly, this upsets me. Like, it puts a pit in my stomach, and it's not even my money. But I like to try and transport myself into these people's shoes. What would I do? Who might I have available? Who would I side with? Who would I be pulling for on Sunday? 1 entry, no pick.
Yeah, and
that's how you're going to go down. I mean, what the hell? No pick? Are you serious? Are you serious?
We haven't had that in a while. When your inherent value is, now, 150,000. Before Thursday, it was 144,000. Yeah. And, I've been around this a long time, and the first couple weeks, I guarantee you there's some people that slept in, partied all night, whatever it was, and they forgot. You wonder about this one here. And I've become more sympathetic. You never know what is going. And I used to be exactly like you. I'm like, what are you thinking? And there's certainly probably some cases where that is absolutely true, but you just never know. It could be a family emergency. It could be a car wreck. You never know what gets in the way of these people getting their selection in. So I've become a little bit more sympathetic here. But at this point in the season, how do you miss it?
Well, let me ask you this, because this does genuinely make a difference, in my opinion. When you submit your pick, do you submit your pick, or can you have a placeholder pick?
What do you mean by a placeholder?
Meaning, could I in my weekly, pick'em pool that I'm in, I can right now put in a pick for every single game, but I have until kickoff to change it. I know you don't have until kickoff to change your survivor pick, but could I put it, if I'm in this contest, could you put in a pick on Monday and just change it before the deadline? Or when you submit it, it is submitted and you're done? Gotcha.
No, once you submit, it's done. That's your final answer.
Okay, so
once you hit submit.
All right, so that I have some sympathy for that. So you can't just in case I forget later, here's my pick. All right, you can't do that. So that's fine. That's good to know.
Right.
They're the 2 most popular teams, and one of them will come as no shock, the Commanders. 33 of 95 entries on the Commanders. The other one, a little surprising to me. At least, not that it was chosen, not that it's being used this week, but that it represents a third of the pool. And that is the Dolphins. Also at 33. I don't think the Patriots are going to win this game, but I'm not that sure the Dolphins are, to where I'm going to risk, my chase at $14 million on it. That's for damn sure. And like you've said, it depends who you've used already and their strategy in terms of who you're trying to save for future weeks. Maybe you just felt boxed in, some of these people, not 33, but some of these people, into where, this is the move. Or maybe you looked at it and said, and you could speak to this better than me, well, if I'm going to use the Dolphins, this is when I'm going to use them. There isn't going to be another opportunity down the road, and that's fine as well. Patriots are not a very good football team. Not that Miami's great, but they're horrid in South Beach. Even when Tom Brady was a Patriot, the Pats were bad in Miami. And so, again, I guess I could talk myself into it if I had to, but there's probably at least 5-6 plays I would have gone to before Miami.
Well, see, that's the statement right there. Are there 5 or 6 plays that you could go to before the Dolphins? It's a really tough week. And Drew Dinsick spoke about it when we had him on a little bit earlier, how when you just look at this card, it looks very puzzling. And then as you dive in deeper, you go through all of your processes, you find some edges and you find some sides you like, some totals, what have you. but there's a lot of road favorites on this card. I want to say there's like 8 of them or something like that. And in Survivor contests, it's kind of, rule number 1, you don't necessarily want to play a road favorite. This week, you almost have to. If you're not taking the Commanders or you're not taking the Dolphins, then where are you going? And we've got 8 selections on the Broncos. I don't have a problem with that. I think the Broncos will beat the Raiders. You've got the Texans as a home favorite, a large home favorite over the Tennessee Titans. But you've got the Texans as a team that's playing on Christmas Day. You might have to save them there. Now, they're in a matchup with the Ravens. Do you want to bet them to beat the Ravens, even though they're at home in that game? But I think for the holiday weeks, Christmas and Thanksgiving, you just want to have as many bullets as possible in your arsenal. And so I think it's probably wise that you go ahead and save the Texans. A road favorite in the Vikings. Do you want to play the Vikings at Soldier Field against the Bears? The Buccaneers. We've got 4 picks on the Buccaneers. Your beloved Buccaneers taking on the Giants. The Packers is interesting to me. We talked about that one. It feels like a free bingo square that they're going to beat 49ers. But the Packers are also a team that'll be hosting the Dolphins next week on Thanksgiving. And again, cold weather versus warm weather, that could be a good spot to use the Packers. So this is a really hard, like I talked about, Adam, a really difficult week here. And then it just gets even more difficult between now and Christmas. Without a doubt, I would have gone with the Commanders. I think that is the easiest pick on the board. I'm surprised it's not, it's tied with the Dolphins for the number 1 most popular pick. I'm surprised there isn't a bigger gap there.
We are going to dive into all of these games, at least to the extent that time allows, but we've got another hour plus still to go in the show. So with all the bye weeks, we should have time to get through at least all the Sunday games. And, there's plenty of time on the network to dive into Monday Night Football, obviously. So circa millions, we can at least start the conversation here. The top 5 most popular selections, Brady, that is what they release here, as well as the votes for every other game as well. Colts, plus 7.5. I'm on that. Bucks, -6. I'm on that. Broncos, -6. I support that. Packers, -2. Agreed. Ravens, -2.5. I have trouble with that. I would be backing the Chargers on that side, if I'm being honest. But what's your quick view of this group of 5, and then we can pick it up on the other side.
Not so fast on that you would back the Chargers, because there's that key difference between 3 and 2.5, right? I know in the Westgate Super Contest, the Chargers are getting 3. It's likely to be very popular over there, just whereas the Ravens are very popular over here because of that key difference in the number.
Unless you believe the Chargers are going to win.
Your main event, tail of the tape for Battle of the Giants. Francis Ngannou, 38 years of age. Reina Fajeda is 34. Francis standing 6 feet 4 inches tall. That's usually the bigger man, but tonight he'll face a man who is 6'8". Reina weighed in heavier, has the longer reach on arms and legs.
Back with Brady, I am Adam. We're talking about these Week 12 selections in circa millions. And again, if you're just joining us, most popular plays, the top 5 most popular: Colts plus 7.5 against the Lions, Bucks -6 at the Giants, Broncos -6, at the Raiders, Packers 2-point favorites at home against the Niners, and Ravens, as Brady brought up, and wise to do so, -2.5 at the Chargers. What do you think of the board here?
Yeah, that Ravens pick is really interesting. I'm with you, Adam. I like the Chargers. I made the game basically a pick 'em. I made the game 3 in favor. I figured, that was probably what the line was going to be. Felt like a fair line to me. But when I crunch all the stats, I come out with the Ravens as just like a half point favorite in this game. It's basically the Ravens offense versus the Chargers defense. Those are two really big strengths going into this contest. But then you have the Ravens and their ability to allow teams to hang around with their lack of pass defense. They're the worst passing defense in the league. We saw it with the Cincinnati Bengals, right up till the very end. They were in that game all the way. I think the Chargers and Justin Herbert, who are improving on offense, it seems like every week, not only in the running game, but in the passing game, most importantly in this case, in this matchup, in the passing game. I think the Chargers will be able to hang around offensively all night because their defense will be able to slow down the Baltimore offense enough. So I think it's a very good, I think you're going to get a very good game here. I think the points will be at a premium, and I think getting 3 with the Chargers is huge, but it looks to me mostly, Adam, like people in this circa contest are playing the number. There is a massive difference between 2.5 and 3, just like there's a massive difference between 3 and 3.5. And it feels to me like a lot of people here, why this pick has become so popular is because of the number. Not necessarily, I mean, if it was 3, you're going to see the results come out on Sunday morning of what the 5 most popular picks are in the Westgate Super Contest, where the Chargers are getting 3, and maybe that will be one of the most popular picks there. So, so much of it's about the number.
Why don't we start going game by game across the slate here in the wake of obviously the first upset of the week, the Browns knocking off the Steelers on a short spread and what looked like a blizzard on television. I know it wasn't that bad. It was fun to watch, though. Look, where should we begin? How about the Lions at the Colts? Because, again, this is one of those games that just feels a little weird. You would talk about this game, and maybe you will talk about this game as kind of one of those hold your nose and place the bet spots, because there are a lot of people. I actually got in at the Colts +8. It's now universally 7.5 across all books that I am looking at. But the Lions, who just obliterated the Jaguars and were able to name their number in the process, obviously, are 18-7 against the spread as a favorite since the start of last year. The 7 touchdowns in as many drives to begin that game at the Jaguars or against the Jaguars at home. Colts are better defensively, obviously, particularly against slot receivers. So maybe it's, Amon-Ra St. Brown, who has scored touchdowns in 8 straight games, is by his standards a little bit limited in this one. But Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, these guys, it feels like they're touchdown machines. They're both in great spots. The Colts, I'm looking at some of the specifics here. It's a tough matchup for Jonathan Taylor. Lions are excellent against the run. The Lions don't see a whole lot in the way of mobile quarterbacks. Maybe that's an advantage for Anthony Richardson in this one, but he's just been so Jekyll and Hyde and in and out of the lineup so far this year. We talk about look-ahead spots. Could it be a look-ahead spot for the Lions? They've got a divisional battle with the Bears on tap, and not only on tap on Thursday, as we know on Thanksgiving. It's a short turnaround. Detroit 8-2 against the spread. Indianapolis 8-3 against the spread. How do you see it?
Yeah, you bring up a lot of good points there, Adam. You talk about Detroit defending the run. That's probably the one area that they don't do as well. I mean, they do so many things well, and it's really impressive. When you look at their stats, we know they're a machine offensively. They're also very good on defense. But if there's one little chink in the armor, it's probably against the run. And we know the Colts have a very good rushing attack with Jonathan Taylor and Anthony Richardson. You also bring up another great point that they don't see a whole lot of mobile quarterbacks. That could absolutely be a kryptonite for this Lions team. And then what I talked about with Drew Dinsick, the scheduling spot here. And let me also say, my numbers come out to Detroit. Again, when I crunch all the stats, my numbers come out to Detroit by about 9.5. So it's very tough for me to go against my numbers. I can tell you all season long, I keep track of all these things. My numbers, all but 1 week, through 11 weeks, 10 out of 11 weeks, my numbers have been successful above 500. Okay, maybe 8-7 or 9-6, but they all but 1 week, they've been above 500. So my numbers, I hate to go against them, but I did here in this spot. I have some bets on the Colts. I had like maybe teasered this and that and the other. but I'm thinking most about the contest here. We did play the Colts plus the 7.5 in the Circa Million. We're considering playing them plus only 7 in the Westgate Super Contest. But look at this schedule here. They have a little bit of a slip against the Texans. They managed to win that game. That came off of a big win on the road at the Packers. Then, like you said, they just absolutely dismantle the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now they've got the Colts. And then after that, it's Thanksgiving. They always play on Thanksgiving. It's a short week. They're probably already doing a little bit of prep for the Bears this week. That is a look-ahead situation just, in itself. And then after that, they play the Packers again. They host the Packers, and then they host the Bills, and then they play the Bears again. So it's like I was talking about with Drew, and he agreed with me. This is just a little bit of a hole in the schedule. And it's so hard to go against Detroit because no matter the situation, they seem to rise to the occasion and win and cover. But I think this could be the spot for the underdog to catch him and stay within the number.
You know what else? Colts have lost 6 games this year. As we know, they're not an elite team. They're 5-6, but not a single time have they lost by more than 10 points. And I think that's a big part of the reason that people are just thinking Indianapolis, probably won't win. Put Detroit in your money line parlays, but the Colts are going to keep it close. More on the way will continue game by game across the NFL here with Brady.
Your main event, tail of the tape for Battle of the Giants. Francis Ngannou, 38 years of age. Reina Fajeda is 34. Francis standing 6 feet 4 inches tall. That's usually the bigger man, but tonight he'll face a man who is 6'8". Reina weighed in heavier, has the longer reach on arms and legs. Francis Ngannou is back!
All right, back with Brady. I am Adam. We'll continue to look around at the world of college football, but right now we're going game by game across the NFL. We'll update you on the college scores in just a little bit. So, look, I don't need to harp about this game that I have already brought up to Kenny and to Drew. Everyone, if you have been watching or listening, and certainly Brady and Matt and everyone behind the scenes, everyone knows how I feel about this game. The Buccaneers, 5.5, 6-point favorites at the Giants. Both teams are coming off a bye. No rest excuses or whatever. Mike Evans expected back for Tampa. He'll be out there. It's huge for Baker Mayfield. A secondary that has loads of issues on the other side. Giants are horrid against the run, as mentioned. So Bucky Irving's in a solid spot. The Bucs 11-3 against the spread on the road since the start of last year. Baker Mayfield does not fear your road hostility. And Tommy DeVito is going to start for New York with Daniel Jones first benched, now released. Now, he was a disaster last year, and I read this, credit Walter Football. DeVito finished by EPA metrics, and I don't like to talk about EPA metrics, and I feel like, one, I'm talking down to people, and two, I'm trying to explain something that nobody understands anyway. But by EPA metrics, he finished ahead of only this collection of players last year, quarterbacks, Brady. Zach Wilson, Trevor Siemian, Bailey Zappi. Those are the 3 quarterbacks that Tommy DeVito was better than last year.
Sounds like a Mount Rushmore to me, right? Tommy DeVito,
Right? Poor Danny's nephew is going to be under pressure in this one, too, because we haven't even discussed the Todd Bowles defense on the other side that is going to blitz. Tommy DeVito, you know what? Here's your take. Tommy DeVito may not make it out of this game. You may see Drew Luck in the second half. Drew Lock at some point in this contest.
It'd be a turn of events, wouldn't it?
That's how ugly I think this game could get. But go ahead.
Yeah, that scenario would not surprise me at all because I think the Giants are that much of a mess right now. It also wouldn't surprise me if you did get the new quarterback bounce and they show up. And I think the Malik Neighbors thing you bring up is absolutely a big deal. If he was healthy, this I mean, that's a game changer right there. And Drew talked about that as well. The Tampa Bay defense is not very good. And if you've got Neighbors on the field healthy, he can absolutely contribute to a Giants effort here in a huge way. The Drew Lock thing, that's what really started me backing off of the Giants. We've seen it, the new quarterback situation. Bryce Young was benched. Andy Dalton went into Las Vegas and beat the Raiders outright. The Saints and their new coach, they've won 2 in a row. It does change an organization. When you have a major change like that, and Kenny talked about it too, the rest of the team responds. They're put on notice, and they also want to prove that, hey, it wasn't my fault. I'm good. You know, the fact that you've made a change and gotten rid of that sour apple that's ruined it for everybody, we're going to show you that the rest of us, you know, we've got our act together. That doesn't always last very long, but you typically get it in that very next effort out. So a few different scenarios I could see happening here. But when I saw the Drew Lock and, you know, he was like ticked off and I think he's, you know, kind of an entitled guy, and I don't know if he really gets it anyway. And, you know, he's not a guy I have a ton of respect for, but it seems typical the way he would react. It also seems to be a microcosm of the unrest and the distraction in that locker room, an example of what's going on there. Now you have Neighbors. We know Dayball is on the hot seat. I don't know if a lot of players like his style of coaching. So there's just too many questions about the state of mind for the New York Giants here for me to go ahead and say, yeah, here's where they show up. But that being said, my numbers show up to Tampa Bay as less than a 4-point favorite in this game. So if I'm just going off of the numbers, I would play New York here, but I'm staying a long way away from this one, Adam.
I can't wait to bet this game. I might double down on this game. I've already invested, so I shouldn't even say I can't wait to bet. I've already bet. I can't wait to put more on it, Brady. That's how I feel about it. Let's quickly, well, which one of these games are worth a minute of our time? You know what? They're all decent. Let's update the college scores right here real quick. So Notre Dame, Chapman minus 14, 49-7. They're up early fourth quarter against Army. Cash your tickets, folks. Boise State has taken a lead, 17-13 at Wyoming, but Wyoming with the ball and less than 5 minutes to go. Alabama getting hosed and housed. Oklahoma's leading 24-3. This game was tied at 3. Late third quarter in this contest. Auburn rushing touchdown to go up 27, soon to be 28-21. About 3 minutes to go in that contest in the third quarter. And Iowa State almost doubling up Utah. It's 24-13. That game early fourth.
Your main event, Tale of the Tape for Battle of the Giants. Francis Ngannou, 38 years of age. Reina Ferreira is 34. Francis standing 6 feet 4 inches tall. That's usually the bigger man, but tonight he'll face a man who is 6'8". Reina weighed in heavier, has the longer reach on arms and legs.
We are back. Adam, Brady, we've updated you on the world of college football. We'll continue to do so, obviously, but we're looking at a lot of these games across the NFL. And let's, Brady, take a look at this Cowboys-Commanders game. Because, again, we all believe, and certainly 33 people, about a third of the pool in Circuit Survivor, believes that the Commanders are going to win the game. The question is, do we lay the number, that is sitting at 10.5? Drew said he did. Cowboys 1-8 against the spread in the last 9 games. Dallas, a double-digit dog for the first time since 2020, fourth time since 2010. This is not a common occurrence, even on the road, just in general. Cowboys, they were trounced by the Texans last time out, 34-10, and honestly didn't feel nearly that close. The O-line is injury ravaged. Zach Martin, one of the latest to go down. Cooper Rush has looked terrible. And there's no reason to believe that he's going to look any better. And Jaden Daniels, while he hasn't quite looked at his best of late. Maybe it's the rib injury, or maybe it's a rookie wall, or call it whatever you want. This is talk about a get right spot. I mean, he should torch this Cowboys defense. And it's a great matchup for Brian Robinson as a rusher as well. And I will note the Cowboys have allowed 18 rushing touchdowns this year. So again, we all think Commanders win. Do they win by 11 plus points?
I believe they will, Adam. And you talk about the Commanders and Jaden Daniels not looking quite like they did earlier in the season. And I think you mentioned the rib injury. That's very possible. I think it's probably more a case of people kind of catching up to the film on this young rookie phenom. You know, he was really fooling people for the first part of this season repeatedly, game in and game out. They're starting to catch up on his antics and the play calling of Cliff Kingsbury a little bit. So the film is now out there. You know how that goes. But now you have, like you said, a get-right spot. Yeah, absolutely. This is a get-right spot against the lowly Dallas Cowboys, who, by the way, crushed the Commanders twice last season. So a little bit of double revenge here for the Commanders. The tides have turned. You know, big brother and little brother or what have you. Now little brother's got the upper hand, is the much better team and can return the favor here. Oh, by the way, you've heard me talk about this before. Dan Quinn, fantastic against the spread, against his former division. You know, Cliff Kingsbury, when he was a head coach with the Cardinals, 7-0 against the number against the NFC East. Well, now we obviously have a division game for Dan Quinn. He used to be the defensive coordinator at Dallas. Absolutely, I think he wants to, you know, show who the new boss is. You know, he's the new boss of this team. And Kingsbury, this is another one that my co-host brought up, Mike Pritchard. Kingsbury's been talked about as possibly, you know, on the list of candidates to coach the Dallas Cowboys. Well, what a better opportunity for an audition for Jerry Jones than to throttle Dallas and say, see, look what I can do. Look at, you know, so I think there's a lot of ways you can go with this one, a lot of different reasoning why Washington should beat the Dallas Cowboys and beat them by margin. And I agree with all of it. And on top of all that, when I crunch the stats, my numbers come out to almost 12 in favor of the Commanders. So, yep, I'm on, and I talked about this with Drew as well. You're not going to probably get rich laying double digits in the NFL. It's not something that I do too often, but I have here with Washington.
While we're staying with games that have giant spreads, we were talking about the Chiefs and Panthers before, and how dare any of you invest in Carolina? Have you not learned your lesson to this point? It's a 10.5, 11-point spread, depending on where you do your shopping. The Chiefs, 4-1-1 against the spread following a loss last year. Of course, they were following a loss for the first time this year, so there was no data after falling to the Bills last time out. The Chiefs are 2-0 against the spread, is a 10-plus point road favorite so far this year. How about this? The Panthers, they have lost by an average of 22 points against teams that at the time of the meeting have winning records. Those include the Chargers, Falcons, Commanders, Broncos. There was also hope that the Chiefs were going to see Isaiah Pacheco this week. It's not happening. I don't know if that impacts your handicap in any way. I don't think it should, but it's one last hurrah for Kareem Hunt, who probably is going to get a lot of work, like maybe 20-plus carries potentially in this game. Again, I don't think anyone is questioning, Brady, whether the Chiefs win this game, but do they cover the number?
You know, I would have to go the direction of yes. It would be talk about a hold your nose and throw up in your mouth. You know, the Carolina Panthers taking the points here would be very difficult for me. We talked about this one with Kenny White as well. I made the number 14.5. And, you know, I'm just going through in my head, I'm looking at numbers from past weeks and where do I set this number? I'm like, you know, gosh, it's got to be 12, 13, 14. I landed on 14.5 and I thought maybe I'm short. Maybe it's 16, maybe it's 17. And Kenny's explanation was very interesting. He said he started with 16 and then he had some factors where he dumbed it down to roughly 11 or so, which is basically what the number is. And that's why Mr. White used to set lines, I guess. But I would lean towards the higher side here. I can't live with myself taking the points here with the Carolina Panthers. The one thing that has me avoiding this game, and I think, these games that we've talked about, Washington and Kansas City, throw them in a money line parlay. I think you're going to be okay. But I would not, while I would lay the big number with Washington, I'm going to stay away from this game because Kenny talked about, the bubble burst, the undefeated season that was ruined for the Kansas City Chiefs last week in losing to the Bills. A huge effort game, possible letdown. There's a lot of different reasons the Chiefs could stub their toe for a minute here. In the end, I think they'll eventually win this game, and I think they'll win it handily. But there were just a couple things that had me staying away here from laying the number as opposed to playing it on the money line in a parlay or something like that. So that's where I'm at with the game. If you made me bet it with the number, I'd take the Chiefs. I find it hard to believe that they're only going to win this game by single digits.
Brady, the books are not in unison on the Texans and Titans. You could get Houston minus 7.5. You could get Tennessee plus 8.5. There are a lot of different ways to go in this game. There are even some 8s out there if that floats your boat, although I don't know why it would when you have those other 2 options available to you. This game is interesting in a lot of different ways. We know Will Levis, not good, and I am being kind when I say that. He was sacked 5 times, intercepted once last week by the Vikings, is facing another top 10 defense that also blitzes at a high rate. Levis, not good against the blitz. It's, on the Texans side, Nico Collins returned last week. He was fine. Honestly, if that first touchdown wasn't called back, we'd be saying he was great. Statistically, he was fine, but wasn't a world beater. This could be a get-right spot for him because the Titans' defense is terrible against the pass, and it's also pretty good against the run, so Joe Mixon might be a little bit contained in this one. But, and I don't know how you feel about this, if you don't want to lay the number with Houston, again, minus 7.5, I'll present an alternative that I was reading earlier that I was intrigued by. The Texans are 10-1 against the spread in the first half this year, ranking in the NFL's top 5 in scoring and points allowed. At home, Houston has an almost plus 10 first half scoring margin, plus 9.4. This week, the Texans, at last look, are favored by 5.5 points in the opening half.
Yeah, I could get behind that. They've been awful in the second half. I think it was that Lions game. They were shut out in the second half, if I recall. And that's not the only time I've seen them do that. It's been a couple, 3 games that I've watched the Texans where they're not doing anything in the second half. And that could be, open up the door for a backdoor cover here for the Titans. I do know that some sharp groups bet the Titans early in this week when it was 9 or 8 or what have you. And then I think some sharp people came back the other way when it got down to as low as 7 or 7.5. My numbers come to Houston by 5.5. But, the numbers say that the Titans should be a bet just about every week. They're the worst bet on the board. I think they're 1-9 ATS. I can't get behind them. I'm going to stay away from this one.
1-9 is correct. It's also terrible. More games to cover with Brady.
Your main event, Tale of the Tape for Battle of the Giants. Francis Ngannou, 38 years of age. Reina Fajeda is 34. Francis standing 6 feet 4 inches tall. That's usually the bigger man, but tonight he'll face a man who is 6'8". Reina weighed in heavier, has the longer reach on arms and legs.
Back with Brady, Kannon, Adam Kaufman. This is In-Game Live College Football Game Day. If you are watching across SportsGrid TV or listening on SiriusXM Channel 159 SportsGrid Radio, we greatly appreciate you spending your Saturday here with us. There is plenty more programming on the way on SportsGrid when we are done at the top of the hour as well. So go nowhere. You will continue to hear all about the college football day and the games that still haven't even kicked off yet, if you can believe it. We've been talking about it all throughout the show, and we'll update you on some college scores here coming up momentarily in the top 25 and beyond. But here is a sentence, Brady. I didn't think I would string these words together in this order in late November. I just didn't. We have a compelling game between the Broncos and Raiders this weekend. We do. A compelling game. Denver is a 5.5-point favorite at Vegas, your backyard. Broncos come in at 6-5, very, very live for a playoff spot. Raiders 2-8, season's over. Broncos first half over-under road record and the Raiders first half over-under home record are a combined 9-1 to the over, if you're interested in trends. First half total, 20.5 this week, if you want to bet the over in the opening half. The Raiders have covered 8 straight home games against the Broncos. That might be reason to go with Las Vegas again, if trends are our friends until they're not. Bo Nix, who, I don't think he's going to beat out Jaden Daniels for Offensive Rookie of the Year, but the fact that he's even in the conversation is kind of remarkable. 206 passing, 3 touchdowns in his first meeting with the Raiders in a 34-18 win in Denver in his 5th career start. He is a hell of a lot better right now than he was then. The Broncos 3-1 against bad QBs, such as Justin Fields, Spencer Rattler, Bryce Young, and Gardner Minshew, who again will be on the other side this week. And Minshew is going to face a lot of pressure, obviously, from that Broncos defense. I will say again, does Denver cover the number?
I think they do, Adam. I like this play quite a bit. I've been very impressed with the Broncos, as of late, really throughout this entire season. Sean Payton, being mentioned in the conversation for Coach of the Year. I like the attitude that he has seemed to bring to this team. They're a very physical team. They play physical on offense. They want to run the ball down your throat with Williams. They play very physical on defense. They're one of the better defenses in the league. And I think he has that quarterback that is a lot like Drew Brees, where just keep him in rhythm, keep things simple, let him use his legs a little bit. Just, a really good game manager seems to be a negative connotation. He's doing a great job managing the game, and he's also making some pretty darn good throws, and he's using his legs to score touchdowns. He's done a really good job. The Raiders, I liked them last week. They were coming out of their bye. I think it was 5 in a row that they had lost. I mean, that's the bye is supposed to be a time when you can work out the problems and get things right and come out the other side and put together an inspired effort. It didn't look that good against Miami, and they were beaten up pretty badly in that game. And it was maybe just a minute that they looked like they had a pulse, but it wasn't that long before it looked like they were pretty ugly in that game. And that told me that this is a pretty messy situation, I believe. Now, on top of all that, they're really injured as well. If you look at the Raiders injury list, it is long. You've got Alexander Madison. Both running backs are doubtful in this game. Zamir White and Alexander Madison. Nate Hobbs is out in the secondary. Jack Jones is questionable. Offensive guard Whitehair questionable. Their center, two members of the offensive line. Their secondary is completely depleted. The offensive line is banged up. You don't have any running backs. So you've got a team that's in a real mess of a situation in the locker room, and now they're injured. And you talk about that trend where the Raiders had owned the Broncos. I think it was 8 or 9 wins in a row that they had beaten the Broncos, both at home and on the road. Well, in steps Sean Payton with this new regime, if you will, in Denver, and he totally changed that trend and kicked the pants off of the Raiders in their first meeting this season. I think that continues. I don't think the Raiders have any business beating the Broncos, getting back to that way that they had owned this team in this division matchup for a while here, for a few years anyway. No, I think the page has been turned, and I think the Denver Broncos get them again here and win this one pretty easily. The other thing is, Adam, we know we have in a couple of hours the F1 race here in Las Vegas. There's a lot of people from out of town. There's a lot of Broncos fans in town. I think you're going to have 65, maybe 70% of that stadium in orange and not silver and black.
I mean, that's not unique to Vegas anyway. There's always a convention. There's always there's always a tourist scene,
it's
right?
It's going to be heavy, though. But, I mean, Colorado's not that far away. Bronco fans travel well. They're fired up about their team. That stadium back home is really starting to rock and roll. They like the Peyton, the attitude. They're fired up. Raider fans, I think, are starting to give up hope. So that's why I'm saying I think you'll have a big imbalance here with the road team represented.
Look, Broncos haven't tasted a playoff spot in a little bit. They're hungry. I get it. They're chasing it. They're honoring a lot of celebrity
Raiders
chefs out there in Vegas right now, too, I think. So the Niners opened as 2.5-point favorites at Green Bay. A lot's changed, including, obviously, most recently the injury to Brock Purdy, to where the Packers are now 5.5-point favorites. We've been talking about this one a little bit. It is a favorite play on the board for a lot of people. Green Bay to cover the number in this one. The Niners don't have Purdy. Probably going to be Brandon Allen, I guess. But they do have Jennings, Samuel, Kittle, McCaffrey. A defense that is more than capable. Do you think Green Bay covers? Do you think the Niners are live to win? How do you see it?
Well, this is a weird situation. I talked about this a little bit with Drew Dinsick, where you have the contest situation, where the number's 2 in these stale line contests. When the line comes out on Wednesday or Thursday, things flip with the Purdy news. And now all of a sudden, as we saw on the Circa Sports Million consensus, there's almost 3,000 people on the Packers for obvious reasons. We can talk about this one more on the other side.
There's nothing I'd rather do. We're going to pick up Niners Packers when we come back here on SportsGrid.
Your main event, Tale of the Tape, for Battle of the Giants. Francis Ngannou, 38 years of age. Reina Fajeda is 34. Francis standing 6 feet 4 inches tall. That's usually the bigger man, but tonight he'll face a man who is 6'8". Reina weighed in heavier, has the longer reach on arms and legs.
All right, we will pick up the Niners Packers in just a second, but to update you on some of the top 25 action, Alabama, it had looked as though the Crimson Tide scored a touchdown, but taken off the board, and so Oklahoma still leads 24-3 in this contest. 9.5 minutes to go in regulation. Texas A&M down at Auburn has tacked on a field goal, the Aggies, and they have the ball, and they are into Auburn territory. 1st and 10 at the 45. 11 minutes and change left in this one, and Auburn is leading 28-24. Utah, who had scored a touchdown earlier and added a 2-point conversion with it, is leading 28-24. Iowa State has the ball, 5.5 to go in this one, so certainly a chance to win it still, but it's a 15-0 margin right now in the fourth quarter of this game with Utah in front, both in the fourth quarter and obviously in the contest. Anything, and we could mention some of the games outside of the top 25 as well, Brady, but anything jumping out at you?
Well, I think Utah coming back in that game is really impressive. We have talked about it a number of times on this show, week in and week out. I have just been so surprised by how poorly their season has gone. This team preseason was projected to win the Big 12, if you recall. And, it was an absolute heartbreaking loss to BYU. They were not able to get back up off the mat after that and was crushed last week by Colorado. And now Iowa State, Tommy Lorenzo talked about it, how this team has kind of been leaking oil ever since their undefeated season was blown. And here they are, up in Salt Lake City, possibly looking at another loss. So, good on Utah and Kyle Whittingham tonight. They were down. You talked about it on your last update. they were almost getting doubled up. It was 24-13. So a great comeback here by Utah. I'm sad to see Alabama going down again. I've got Oklahoma plus the 14, but I would like Alabama to win this game outright because I'm a fan of Kalen DeBoer, and I'd like to see him in the playoff. If he loses this game, I don't know what his chances are of making that playoff are. The LSU Vanderbilt game has finally got some separation. LSU finally pulling away. Vanderbilt had it going in the role of the underdog. Once again, LSU just adding a touchdown here. A lot of time left for Vandy to still cover a big number. And then A&M and Auburn has been a fascinating game as well. That one, a ton of time left there and only a 4-point deficit now for the Aggies.
I'll add to the mix as well, and everything is locked up, so you can't bet it at the moment, at least where I'm looking. But I am invested in Oregon State plus 11. I'm not worried that's going to cash.
That's maybe the best game on the board.
That's what I'm saying. Washington State at Oregon State. This game is a minute left. Oregon State has the ball. 4th and 6 at the WSU 45. This game is tied at 38. Now, if you could invest in it right now, where would you go?
I'd have to take the Beavers, Adam. What I'd love to bet on is that it's headed for overtime. I don't think that's really a stretch here. But what a tip of the cap, an ode to Pac-12 after dark. The Pac-2, the remaining two teams there in the old Pac-12 conference, Oregon State and Washington State, doing battle till the bitter end, probably headed for extra football here in Corvallis. It's a great thing. It brings back memories of what we used to enjoy out of that conference late into the evening on Saturday nights, just high-scoring affairs going each way but loose. So this is pretty cool to see. We talked about this early, that this could be a game that would have a lot of trials and turns and twists because Washington State, that devastating loss last week, they were in the thick of it. They were truly in the mix to make the college football playoff, but beaten by New Mexico last week. This felt like a really good spot for a bad football team in Oregon State, and absolutely looking like that has come true here, giving Washington State every bit they want in this contest.
Brady, we have a minute until we break. Let's get those thoughts on the Niners and Packers.
I can't get there with San Francisco. Just too many injuries. Trent Williams is maybe the biggest, okay? Even Brock Purdy struggles when Trent Williams is not in the lineup. Brandon Allen, how is he going to handle it with Trent Williams listed as questionable? No Nick Bosa. That's why they lost to Seattle last week. Gave up 14 points with him out of the lineup on defense. They're too banged up. I don't know if I want to lay it, Adam, but money line Packers, yes. I think they win the game without a doubt.
I thought Brady was about to say to me, I can't get there. I only have a minute? You want my thoughts in a minute? No, I can't. No, he did it. He found a way. 4 games to come. We've got about a half hour left.
Your main event, Tale of the Tape for Battle of the Giants. Francis Ngannou, 38 years of age. Reina Fajeda is 34. Francis standing 6 feet 4 inches tall. That's usually the bigger man, but tonight he'll face a man who is 6'8". Reina weighed in heavier, has the longer reach on arms and legs.
All right, Brady. You want to skip ahead to Sunday Night Football? We'll go back. We have other games to hit on Sunday, but this is an interesting Sunday Night Football game. The Eagles at the Rams. Now, it's an important game for both teams, obviously. Philadelphia, I can't imagine the Eagles not making the playoffs, but they're trying to win the division. They don't want to be a wild card team. And the Rams, very much fighting for their lives right now, not unlike the Niners in that same division, by the way. Right now, this is a 2.5 3-point spread. So obviously, if you do back LA, make sure you grab that +3. But you can go inside the field goal if you like the Eagles, and that is compelling. Pardon me. That 2.5, I am only seeing at FanDuel, by the way, and 3 everywhere else. Just to let people know. So Jalen Hurts, again, he's going to get a lot of pressure. The run defense has improved. That could limit Saquon Barkley. Might be that much more emphasis on Hurts, his scrambling ability and just what he can do with his arm. Although that being said, people always say that, like, it's a good run defense. Derrick Henry, Saquon. I don't know. There are some guys that just sort of feel like matchup nightmares and somewhat matchup irrelevant. And the season that Saquon Barkley is having right now, I'm never going to count him out, even against a good run defense on the other side. Rams particularly poor against the tight end position. And so Dallas Goedert, good news for him. Devontae Smith is out for this game, which does remove an area of strength, pardon me, for the Eagles, because the Rams not good against slot receivers. So the fact that Smith is unavailable, that is going to be just an extra little hurdle that, I guess hurdle, pun intended, given the Saquon backwards hurdle, little hurdle that Jalen Hurts is going to have to deal with. He is also 9-15 against the spread as a road favorite. Brady, does that give you pause at all?
It sure does. I think this is the hardest game to figure out of the week. I know sharp people on both sides of the fence on this one. I couldn't believe the number. It was kind of like the Kansas City number. I made it 14.5 and it comes out 11. I'm like, what? The Panthers getting respect? I made the Eagles number 5 and it comes out 2.5. And I went, wow, 2.5. Less than a field goal. Now, then it got bet up to a field goal. You're talking about the market currently. FanDuel dealing a 2.5. Also, Circa dealing a 2.5, which in my mind is telling. Circa is a very sharp book. So there's certainly some sharp play, I'm assuming. There could be other factors that have caused this number to come down, but I'm going to guess that there's some sharp activity on the Rams here at Circa. Also, the rest of the market that has those 3s up, a lot of them are very weak 3s, like 3 minus 105, okay, which means it's possibly headed to 2.5. So that is very interesting. And let's face it, the Rams were in a pretty tough spot last week after being beaten and kind of embarrassed on Monday night by the Dolphins. They went out across the country and handled the Patriots pretty easily. The Patriots were a threat for a minute in that game, but that was a pretty good road win as a sizable road favorite for the Los Angeles Rams last week. And, some people might say it's a coaching mismatch, Sean McVay versus Nick Sirianni, and be backing the Rams there for that reason. I think Devontae Smith being out of the lineup is a big deal. The Rams are very young in the secondary. If both Smith and A.J. Brown were available, they could be really taken advantage of possibly in pass defense. But, I talk about making the number 5 myself. When I crunch all the stats, I come to Philadelphia minus 10. So I played Philadelphia on the money line, but I'm not so sure how confident I feel about that, because this game has really been all over the map. I think there's a lot of different ways you can go with it. Like I said, I've seen strong opinions on both sides of the fence here. I don't know it's probably all about the number, Adam. If you can lay 2.5, lay it. If you can take 3, take it.
Interesting spread here with this Cardinals and Seahawks game, because there, again, just all depends on where you look. Pick 'em. Seahawks minus 1.5. Cardinals obviously plus 1.5 and everything in between. I see some ones out there, again, depending on the book you're using. This is a Cardinals team that, look, I don't think it's great by any means. I don't think it's automatically going to win the division or be a playoff team even. But they are due more respect than I have personally been giving them of late. Arizona has won 4 straight, is sitting at 6-4. This offense has been terrific with Kyler Murray in recent weeks, even though Marvin Harrison Jr., ironically, has not been a huge part of it. It's been James Conner. It's been Trey McBride. This group has just, it's been terrific. It's a good spot against a team that I have felt is a pretender all year long at Seattle. Rain is in the forecast as well. Just want to make note of that. And Geno Smith, though, and this is a feather in the cap of the Cardinals, Geno Smith has thrown 9 interceptions in 6 home games so far this year. Is this another one where you are investing in the Cardinals and, spread be damned because it's so close? You could, just take the money line if you want to feel better about it. But it's this game is essentially a pick 'em. So where do you go?
I stayed a long way away from this one, Adam. We touched on it with Drew Dinsick. I think I can go a lot of different directions here. Is the number being propped up a little bit because Seattle got what was really kind of a phony win last week against the 49ers? The 49ers were absolutely in control of that game just about the entire time. When Nick Bosa went out with that oblique injury, he was really a game wrecker in that game for the first part when he was in there healthy. But then he went out and the Niners, like they have done this year, and we've seen him do it in the past, they let it slip through their fingers in the end, and Seattle got there and won. I still don't think Seattle's a very good team at all. You talk about Geno Smith. I mean, he has just a propensity to turn the ball over like crazy. I love Arizona. I have thought this team, Jonathan Gannon, I think, has done a wonderful job coaching. Trey McBride is just a beast. Connor's playing great. I think the defense is getting better. It's not great, but it's getting better. It's still below average for sure, and that could be a reason to back Seattle here. But I talked about this as well. You mentioned they've won 4 in a row, and then all that momentum, all that positive mojo that they've got going has to come to a screeching halt because of the bye week. That's a team I like to bet against on the other side of the bye week. But my numbers, I've got a conflict. I made Arizona a 1-point favorite. When I crunch the stats, I come out to Arizona as a 4.5-point favorite. They're clearly the better team. Are they? I also have to ask myself, you look at all these road favorites we have this week. We know Kansas City's worthy of being a road favorite. We know Detroit is worthy of being a road favorite. I believe the Broncos are worthy. Are the Arizona Cardinals worthy yet? Even though they've won 4 in a row, are they really that good where we should, anoint them into the role of road favorite? I have a lot of questions here at the same time. I don't want to back the Seahawks, who I believe are a bad team. I'm going to stay away from this one, my friend.
There are at least 2 games scanning the board that we have not yet discussed, pardon me. Patriots, Dolphins, Vikings, Bears, and I'm just talking about Sunday. Obviously, we have not hit on Monday Night Football. Maybe, Brady, I missed one, you can tell me. But those 2 we have not yet gotten into, and we've still got some time, about 20 minutes left in the show. And then, because I feel like we keep saying this, both of us, we keep saying this, I don't know if they'll cover, but I think they're going to win. I take them on the money. I think at some point before the end of the show, our favorite, if we were building on a money line parlay, our favorite spots to include, because there are a lot of really interesting matchups to where it's like, well, you see, I want to hear it. I want to know it, because there are a lot of interesting. I haven't built one out yet personally. I'll do that maybe during one of these commercials and see what the odds look like, and we can give it to the people, shop it around, whatever. Because there are a lot of like, oh yeah, they're going to win, but will they cover the 10.5 and all that stuff? So we can play with that a little bit and see what we have. Maybe we put one together for almost every game. See how much money we can take from the books on this Sunday, Brady. I'm in favor of that, but like I said, we got a couple games to come back with. We'll do that in a little bit. Also to update you, Oklahoma well on its way to a win, up 24-3 at home with the ball. 5 minutes left on Alabama. Texas A&M though, 4 minutes to go at the Auburn 8 and down by 4.
Your main event, Tale of the Tape for Battle of the Giants. Francis Ngannou, 38 years of age. Reina Fajeda is 34. Francis standing 6 feet 4 inches tall. That's usually the bigger man, but tonight he'll face a man who is 6 foot 8. Reina weighed in heavier, has the longer reach on arms and legs.
Texas A&M did score, was a rushing touchdown, and after the extra point, now up 31-28 in Auburn. And, of course, Auburn getting the ball back with minutes to go in the fourth quarter. Brady, just taking a quick look, see if any live odds are available to us. They are, so it makes sense. Auburn plus 2.5, get this, plus 250.
Wow. Yeah. The key number of 3, right? And that's, we talked about it with Baltimore and the Chargers in the difference between the Super Contest and the Circus Sports Million. You know, those numbers, 2.5, 3, 3.5, probably the most important 3 numbers, certainly in the NFL, and they're pretty darn important in college as well. So yeah, with A&M up by 3, do I want to take? It's never a great practice to take 2.5. Period, Adam. So no, I don't want to do it right now.
I do not blame you. Let's talk Patriots Dolphins. I saved them for now for a reason. That reason is no one wants to talk Patriots Dolphins. So Patriots, of course, you know, the first time these teams matched up, Brady, it was a 15-10 win in Foxborough for Miami. However, it should be noted the quarterbacks in that game were Tyler Huntley and Jacoby Brissett. We have Tua Tagovailoa against Drake May this weekend, as God intended. And understandably, the Dolphins are still heavy favorites. In fact, you know, just outside a touchdown, last I looked at it. I'll see if anything has changed. No, you can get some 7s. 7.5 also available if you like the Patriots. There are some 7.5s out there. May is, you know, going to try and scramble himself out of trouble as often as possible, obviously. It is a great matchup for Hunter Henry if you like his props. They are low. Finns really struggle with the tight end position. Brock Bowers went nuclear last week. I would consider investing in both Henry and Austin Hooper for that matter. The Dolphins, they are 12-4 against the spread in their last 16 games when favored by at least a touchdown. They have also covered in 8 straight games against the Patriots. And oh, by the way, as mentioned earlier, they represent a hefty chunk, roughly a third of Circus Survivor. People depending on Miami to not cover, but simply win this weekend at home against a Patriots team that they have largely dominated even since Tom Brady was still wearing Patriots colors. So, what do we think? Miami win this thing going away, or do the Patriots keep it close?
I think the Patriots keep it close and could possibly win the game and upset Circus Survivor for 33 entries that are investing in Miami this week. The stock is getting pretty high on the Dolphins right now, and, you know, deservedly so. It has surprised me just looking at the numbers, how quickly they have turned around in the stats with the return of Tua Tagovailoa to this lineup. Now, it got out of the gate slowly. They lost to Arizona. I think they lost a couple of games in a row, if I recall. And then it all turned when they beat the Rams on Monday night. They beat the Raiders. I thought the number was way out of whack with the Raiders coming out of a bye week, the opportunity to reset. I was wrong. Miami really schooled the Raiders in that game. Now you have a division game and a team that really plays hard. I think a team that has been slowly but surely improving in the Patriots, a quarterback that I think has been slowly but surely improving. They're getting healthier, maybe healthier than they've ever been all season, are the Patriots. And I know they've typically struggled not only against the Dolphins, but in Miami. But I absolutely think that they can stay within this number. And like I said, if you think they can stay within the number, then they might win the game too. And they just might here, because with this little run that Miami has kind of turned things around with Tua back, I think they're being a little bit inflated here. Divisional matchup, touchdown. Yeah, I'm on the Pats. We took them in the contest out here in Las Vegas. I took them plus 7.5, just running to the window to make a bet. I don't think this is going to close 6.5, Adam. But I would be surprised if you find too many 7.5s before kickoff.
Brady, this Vikings-Bears game, it is in Chicago, and the Bears, they are 8-1 against the spread in their last 9 home games, if you can believe it. Obviously, that dates back to last year. A total, and I bring up the total for a reason. It is just below 40, looking at 39, 38.5, 39.5. Both teams are 7-3 to the under this year, but again, low number. Minnesota, who's 8-2, but looked honestly a little fraudulent of late, is a 3.5-point favorite in this game. Aaron Jones expects to be a focal point. The Bears struggle against the run. Bears are coming off their first win over the Packers since 2018, as Caleb Williams, of course, rebounded from that ugly loss to the aforementioned Patriots. But Brian Flores blitzing defense on the other side. What is that going to mean for the first overall pick in the most recent draft? What do you see this weekend?
Let me go back real quick. Miami, I made the number 5.5, and when I crunch the stats, it comes out 5.5. So more support there from my statistics that I look at as well for the Patriots case. In this case, I made the number 4.5, and when I crunch the stats, I come out with Minnesota 6.5. But I don't like the situation really for either team, and especially the Vikings. I thought it was also interesting to see in the Circus Sports Million contest, it's very close, about 1,100 picks on either side. But the Bears actually are getting more selections at plus 3.5 than the Vikings. The Vikings, certainly in the eyes of the public, are the better team here. The point spread, of course, is the great equalizer. You talk about how good the Bears have been against the number at home. How do they recover off of that horrible, horrific, gut-wrenching loss last week to the Packers? We saw the Denver Broncos respond after a tough loss to the Chiefs in similar fashion, but will the Bears be able to do that? You're right about Minnesota. They don't look nearly as good as they did at the start of the year. Here's the real one for me, why I can't get behind the Vikings. This is their third straight game on the road. That's a tough spot. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're the Lions, the Chiefs, the Bills. 3 games in a row on the road is difficult. So again, Adam, it's another one I stayed away from. I think if you want to play contrarian in a contest, not the case in Circus Sports Million, but I think the Bears will certainly be an unpopular choice.
We're going to build out some money line parlays. I'm going to build mine during the break. Brady, I'm not even going to talk to you about it. I'm going to see what it looks like, then we're going to compare and contrast.
Your main event, tail of the tape for Battle of the Giants. Francis Ngannou, 38 years of age. Renan Ferreira is 34. Francis standing 6 feet 4 inches tall. That's usually the bigger man, but tonight he'll face a man who is 6'8". Renan weighed in heavier, has the longer reach on arms and legs.
Back with Brady, a few more minutes here of in-game live college football game day, and we keep saying we're going to build out some money line parlays in the NFL. Well, we've reviewed every game now, so let's do it. Now, I've not discussed this with Brady outside of talking about every game, so I got a feeling I know where he leans on most things, but in terms of what his favorite plays would be, the quote-unquote, because nothing is automatic, nothing is guaranteed, nothing is free in betting in football. I mean, hell, in a year that the Dogs have been so dominant, I hope I don't need to tell you out there who watching, listening, that any team could blow up your parlay, a money line parlay in the world of the NFL. But I have isolated of all the games, including Monday night, by the way, although I didn't include Monday night, but I just want to let people know it's available if you want to. I have 7 in this parlay that I feel good about. 7 winners that I feel good about.
I'm guessing the Buccaneers are one of those legs. Just a wild
Buccaneers
guess.
I left out. No, of course, yes. The Buccaneers are in there. I have the so here are the teams that I've included. Shouldn't come as any great shock to people. The Buccaneers, the Chiefs, the Texans, the Lions, the Commanders, the Broncos, and the Packers. The other games, which are the Vikings-Bears, Patriots-Dolphins, Cardinals-Seahawks, Eagles-Rams, Ravens-Chargers, are all just a little too wonky for me. I mean, I could lean to a side, obviously, but I could very easily see any of those teams blowing up a parlay.
Yeah, absolutely. And I tell you, of everyone you've mentioned there, if I had to say that there was one leg that could be the one that upsets the party there, maybe the Colts. Maybe the Colts catch the Lions. It's hard to imagine that, but that might be my one. So here's what I did. I couldn't remember who the fourth team was that I put in here. We have three.
Oh, I should tell people. This is and it depends where you shop it. I'm looking at one book in particular because I just grabbed my phone and opened a book and did it. It is plus 475 for those 7 legs.
Okay. Mine is plus 220. Okay.
Okay.
I played the Eagles on the money line. 4-team money line parlay. Played the Eagles on the money line, which I'm a little bit nervous about that one. The Broncos. And then kind of the two that just seem like no-brainers, the Commanders and the Chiefs. The Commander-in-Chief. Yep. That's interesting there. The Commanders and the Chiefs, the Broncos.
Timely.
Commanders, Chiefs, Broncos, and Eagles, my 4-team moneyline parlay. And pays plus 220.
The Eagles, if you're going to talk about Commander-in-Chief, it does feel like the Eagles should be included.
That's right. Very good. This is making more sense than I ever dreamed of. Yes. Very good play.
Very patriotic. How do the Broncos fit Very patriotic.
Riding a horse into town with this parlay in my hand, I don't know.
I mean, I have seen a lot of Twitter memes of Donald Trump on a horse, so maybe it does all fit. Oh goodness. Well, I'm going to invest in this parlay. Just pizza money and see how it turns out.
Adam. Yeah. This is another one that pays, I should say, plus 150. And that is a 5-team 10-point teaser. Okay, which is very much like playing a money line parlay in some cases. I've got the Colts plus 17.5, the key hook there on that 17. The Commanders as a pick'em. The Chiefs at -1. The Titans plus 17.5, and then the Broncos plus 4. And again, that's a 10-point teaser that pays plus 150. They all look good on paper. We'll see if they play out on Sunday.
What's so interesting, though, is even though I mentioned that I did invest in the Colts at plus 8 and it's 7.5 now, you say Titans plus 17.5, and there's still a part of my brain, and maybe it's recency bias, that says I could see the Lions winning by 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, no, I hear you. That is probably the one that gives me a little bit of pause. Yeah, the Titans could lose by 25. We've seen it happen. I'm hoping 17.5 is safe. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. All right, very good. We want to thank all of our guests. We had Drew Dinsick, we had Kenny White, we had Tommy Lorenzo, Matt, everybody behind the scenes for keeping us in line for the last 3.5 hours. The sports betting weekend on SportsGrid, certainly not over. There's more programming with Casey Hudson after us. I'll be back tomorrow, 4:30 Eastern, in-game live pro football game day, and hopefully we'll see Brady, as we typically do, to help us preview Sunday Night Football. We'll talk to you then.